So in this video, I work on a 2010 Chevy Camaro. Now, if you just want to skip to me actually detailing the vehicle, just skip ahead to this timestamp so you can just start watching the time lapse. But just to give you a bit of context, I believe the customer said he ordered this, he custom ordered this vehicle from the factory when it first came out. That's pretty cool. So this was an engine cleaning, a basic wash, and a full interior cleaning. Now this is the second vehicle I've detailed for the customer. He wanted to sell this vehicle as well, so again it's just prepping up for sale. Now on the basic wash, it could have definitely used a clay bar treatment, it could have definitely used a wax, it could have definitely used some polish, but because he's just wanting to sell it, we didn't need to go overboard, we just need to make it look good enough for the photos, so the basic wash would suffice. The full interior cleaning, it wasn't in bad condition as you see in my other videos, which I have like trashed interiors. So it wasn't in bad condition, so it didn't require an intense cleaning, but I still did scrub everything down. That way it gets to, I get it back to to a great condition. Again, and it wasn't that bad as you'll see in a bit. And then lastly, the engine cleaning. Of course, everyone wants to see a clean engine because they want to make sure, it gives that vibe of you've taken care of this car, there's no leakage or anything. So an engine cleaning and dressing it is always helpful for selling a vehicle. Now this vehicle, it did take me a bit longer than I expected, and I didn't charge much on this one because I assumed it was going to take that long. I was kind of guesstimating around 3.5, 4 hours max. It took me around 5-ish hours to complete. I charged 160 or 180 on this, and it took me around 5.5-ish hours. So just take that into consideration. You're not always gonna get it absolutely perfect. That's fine. And two main reasons why it took a little longer, or three actually, took a little longer than usual is one, filming. That always takes time. I always say that. Two, the wheels were actually much worse than I expected as far as the brake dust being stuck on the wheels. I had my vehicle. It's a pretty long driveway that I was working on, so I couldn't put my vehicle right next to that vehicle, so my vehicle was still on the street. So me being foolish, I didn't take all the tools and products out and put it next to the Camaro. Instead, I kept on going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and that just added so much time. I know it did. So that was bad on my part. And probably lastly is when I was doing the engine cleaning, the water hose was leaking, so I couldn't just like hold it in my hand or leave it on the ground because water would just it'd get wet everywhere. So I had it in a bucket. I had to hold it a certain way. I didn't have much room when I was doing the engine cleaning. So all those variables did add into why the detail took longer. But overall, it came out great. It took a little bit more time than I wanted to, but I got the job done. And people are always asking me, hey Oscar, I'm about to get into business. Hey Oscar, I'm trying to get into business. How do I advertise? How do I market? I always recommend this strategy if you're trying to get into business. If you have no experience, if you have little experience, if you want to make a few $100 this weekend or in the next couple days, use this strategy. I tell everyone this strategy. It works absolutely great. So many people have replied to me saying, hey, it was super easy. It wasn't overwhelming. I got it. Thank you. Download this guide if you actually are looking to start your business and you want to make your first few $100 with this guide. Super helpful, super useful. Click the link in the description box down below. Download it and put it to use. Let's get into the video. Alright, so starting things off, this car was covered because he hasn't driven in a few months. He bought this vehicle back in 2010, absolutely brand new. And so it's just been sitting there for a very long time. So he's been taking off that cover on and off for about a few months now because it's just there sitting. And that's my first time actually taking off a car cover from a vehicle. It's a bit tricky if you've never done it, but it's actually not that difficult once you get the hang of how to actually take it off. So first I'm going to start off with the interior. Now this was a full interior cleaning, but it wasn't in that bad of a condition. He was a single owner at the time, doesn't really take his kids there. So there wasn't much dust or dirt in the interior. I didn't get much of a before because I just wanted to get straight to the detail. Although I did clean everything in the interior, it wasn't heavily soiled, so I didn't do a intense interior cleaning. So I still did scrub everything down, but since it wasn't that bad, it didn't require that much cleaning as you typically see on this channel. But it still was a full interior cleaning. Now moving on to the door jambs. It's a very simple method. Regardless if it's super dirty or not, I typically just go with APC or ONR and wipe it down with a towel. If it is really, really bad on certain areas like where the jams are at, I'll use a brush to not just beat up my fingers. But other than that, the fastest, most efficient way I've seen it, not the pressure washer, not with a steamer, not with APC and a cleaner, is just spraying APC and wiping it down with the towel. So you need to have multiple towels. Just having multiple towels throughout the detail helps, but this is the best way I found to clean door jambs. Okay, moving on into the interior, I'm gonna work on the center console. I should have really started from the top, working my way down, which you'll see in a bit, but I started from the back side and then went to the top and then worked my way down. Didn't take up too much time and I wasn't working over myself, but I kind of, it wasn't that fluid of a motion in terms of getting the interior done in the most efficient manner. But here now you'll see that I'm actually working from the top, so top of the dashboard and then working my way down. And the reason you want to do this is that way if any cleaner or dust that's falling from the top will fall down, and since you haven't cleaned the bottom portion of it yet, then that means once you get to the bottom portion, you're going to clean that part and you're just moving in one fluid motion instead of working the back, instead of like cleaning the entire center console where the shifter's at, then cleaning the top navigation part or the vents, and then having some of that cleaner and dust and dirt fall down, then you're just working over yourself. So better to start from the top and always work your way down. And I get a lot of questions asking why I don't use a steamer when I'm working the interior. I usually pull out the steamer when it needs it. So in this particular situation, it wasn't that bad. So I wasn't chasing down a lot of grime or gunk in between the seams or on the car seats. So it wasn't necessary in this situation. If I had it, would it really help that much more? I would say no, not really. Because again, the interior just wasn't that bad. So I took the time just to do it with the brushes, which I typically do anyhow. Where I use a steamer most of the time would be on the car seats, leather seats, floor mats, maybe even the door panels. But other than that, I'm going to go with the brushes and APC and the towel on the rest of the interior, which would be like the headliner. Now, if the headliner needs more of a thorough cleaning, if there's a lot of stains on the headliner, I'll use a steamer. But for the most part, I'm gonna go with the door panels, the dashboard, the A, B, C pillars. That's gonna go with just a brush and APC. And again, the steamer is more so for the floor mats, car seats, and leather seats, and sometimes if needed, other areas like the door panels, headliner, the vents, if needed at that point. Now, I was asked, if you're gonna clean an interior that's not that bad, how do you manage the customer's expectations so they don't expect a huge difference if the vehicle isn't that bad? And this is a great example here where the car did need a deep cleaning, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a complete restoration job. Again, this is I believe it was a 2010 Camaro. He custom ordered it, and he hasn't driven it in a very long time. So there was years of driving, and then there was months of it just sitting. So although it wasn't in bad condition, a deep cleaning would make a difference in terms of getting it ready for sale. So it comes down to managing the customer's expectations. Don't hype the detail up where it's gonna be like, you're gonna see it like you've never seen it before and yada yada yada. Like, you want to say, okay, I've told this customer, like, look, it's not that bad a condition. It still needs a good thorough cleaning, but it's not, it just there's dust, there's a little bit of dirt here and there. You can clean up a few spots here and there to make it look better. So it will help out, but it's definitely not in a terrible condition where I need to spend hours and hours on the interior. So you want to manage the customer's expectations relative to like the results you're going to get with the detail. And moving on to the next door panel. This one I could actually get a good visual instead of the other door panel where you're just looking at my back. Again, the door panel wasn't that bad, but it was a quick light cleaning, hence why I'm using the softer detail buddy brush instead of the upholstery brush, because it didn't require it. So it's just a quick scrub down of the door panel, mostly to get rid of the dust, maybe a little bit of grime that was there, but overall it wasn't that bad. Next, I'm moving on to the trunk door jamb. Now the door jambs here were the worst by far, just because the water travels there. I guess it sits there better. So this one actually needed a lot more work, which you'll see in a bit. but for the most part I'm going to go with just wiping it down with a towel and APC. And as I mentioned, if it's if it's in a tight area where my knuckles are going to get jammed up, I will use a brush. That way my knuckles don't get jammed up, as I'm sure if you've detailed any cars, you'll notice that that's a common thing that can happen to your hands. Is they get bashed by metal objects. So you can see here I'm actually using a brush, and I'm using a 32-ounce bottle of just water. So instead of using the hose, which I have there readily available, but there was actually a leak in the nozzle, so it was kind of cumbersome to use it, I opted out to using a spray bottle with water to rinse down the cleaner from the door jambs. It takes a little bit more time, obviously, as opposed to using a water hose, but it gets the job done, and I wasn't having to fight the water hose with all that water leaking from the nozzle. So it's not as effective as a hose, but it does get the job done with a few more seconds or minutes added. Now let's move on to the floor mats. Now a quicker way to do this is to scrub it down, and instead of using a towel like I am there, it's better to rinse it off with water. But because I was just already moving, I don't want to take the time to go get the hose or anything. I just started wiping it down. But yes, it'd probably be easier just to rinse it down with water if you have that readily available. If you don't, again, you can use maybe a spray a 32-ounce bottle of water and just spray it down with water if you don't have that water hose. Or you could just do my method and just wipe it down. Alright, so now it is 11:30, just about 11:26. I started roughly at 9:30, so it took me exactly 2 hours to finish the interior. It was a thorough cleaning, but there wasn't much going on, so it wasn't much work. He's gonna sell the vehicle, as I said. So let me just give you a quick pan, because I have to keep on rushing to the engine, and then a quick wash on the outside, because I have to go see 2 more jobs today, so I have to get out of here quickly. This one's very straightforward. I steamed this a little bit. So it came out good. I'll go on the other side so you guys can see it better. Let me lift this up for you guys. Again, there was nothing. I mean, I just vacuumed it. I just vacuumed this. There was no stain cleaning whatsoever on the back side, at least. I mean, there was some stain cleaner right there on this steering wheel. I gotta touch that up right there. On the bottom side there, a little bit here, but other than that, it was just a quick wipe down. Let me see if I can catch that. Yeah, I gotta get that too. Oh, that's cleaned up and stuff. So very straightforward detail. Nothing crazy in this one. And that's it. So, and then I'm taking pictures with him, because he's gonna sell this car, so I'm gonna take pictures so he can use them for wherever he wants to post them. So make sure you do that with your customers. That way you add that. You're giving an extra benefit. And this is just one of those shots where I want to show you guys how I move during the detail to give you a better visualization of what happened. So this is just me literally setting up my cord. Alright, let's move on to the engine. Again, I gotta keep on moving super fast, so I'm not gonna have a lot of angles or stopping or throwing this point, because I need to get going, as I said earlier, and I'm keep on saying it. So I mean, yeah, this one's relatively clean. It's just a light layer of dirt. I mean, like a little bit is caked on is here, just because the water seeps through here and it sits here for a little longer than what it would in there, because that's just gonna be like dust and dirt that's coming up from when pushing it from underneath and such. So this is gonna be a little caked on more because it actually sits there for a while, because that's where the water travels to. But other than that, I mean, yeah, just a good little scrub dubbing with some APC. The brushes rinsing down, and again, like the battery's covered. Like there's nothing really exposed, so I'm not gonna cover anything because everything is covered by the plastic. So I'm set to go. And again, you're not gonna completely rinse the engine, like just holding the water right there for 5 seconds. I mean, I literally just use enough water just to carry the solution and the dirt off of the engine base. So for those that are worried about like I'm gonna damage it, whatever, like you're literally not gonna take 5 gallons of water and just sit it right here, or like open this up and then shoot it directly to like the battery, like electricals. It's common sense. It's gonna be just the lightest bit of water just to rinse down the engine bay. So let's go ahead and get started on this. Now I'm gonna start off with a quick inspection of the engine bay. Let me, want to see where the battery's at, alternator, if there's like the air intake, if there's anything that just obviously being exposed. I'd want to cover that up, which in this particular situation I didn't. I next move on to blowing off all the debris, so the leaves, the acorns. If you don't have that, use your hand, a vacuum to actually suck it out instead of blowing it out. Then I'm gonna work again, same thing as I mentioned on the interior. I want to work from the top of the hood and work my way down, because if I started with the actual engine bay, like the whatever part of the engine compartment, and then I went to the top of the hood, well, all that dirt would just travel back down onto the engine bay. So better to start from the top and work my way down. And to be honest, I think I probably used less than a gallon of water to actually rinse down the engine bay, because again, I'm not there to completely saturate it. All of my main goal is to just carry off the dirt and solution that I use on the engine bay and carry it off the engine bay. So I'm more than certain I used less than a gallon of water, maybe half a gallon of water, to actually rinse down the engine bay. Now you want to work the engine bay in sections. I see people spray down the entire engine bay with a cleaner and then try to move quickly enough to get the entire area. In my experience, how I like to do things is, especially if you're in the heat, it's gonna dry out the product. So best just to break down the engine bay into compartments. So maybe just into 1/3, into 1/4, into quadrants, however you want to go it, but break it down into sections. That way it's much more manageable. So I'm working the left section here. I spread it all down, I cleaned it, I rinsed it, and then I'm gonna move off to the middle section of the engine bay. And then I'm gonna rinse it down, agitate it with the brushes, rinse it down, and then I'm gonna move to the right side of the engine bay. That way I'm working in a systematic process and I'm not giving the product enough time to dry, because number one, it was kind of warm at this time and I didn't have any shade. So if I spray down the entire engine bay, it's gonna make me rush a bit more. I'm not gonna be able to focus on certain areas as much as I want, which I'll then have to spend more time after I rinse it down checking my areas to see what spots I missed. So in my specific experience, how I like to tackle things is to break things off into sections to give you more working time and to get more specific on certain areas so you save more time later down the road. And as you can tell, I don't use that many brushes. I am using just 3. The lug nut brush, which is, you see there. I'm using the small easy detail brush, and then I'm using the fender wheel and tire long brush. And my primary one that I'm using is this lug nut brush and the small easy detail brush. So you don't need to have this huge assortment of tools and products to get the engine bay done. You only need but a few to do most of the work to get you phenomenal results. And as you saw there, when you're using the easy detail brush, it will sling some of that water and solution back. So be careful, wear eyeglasses, which I didn't, but be aware that you are gonna get a lot of sling back, especially if you're using a lot more water or product. It's gonna be more prone to sling a lot of that back to you. And lastly, now I'm gonna dry everything off with the Metro Sidekick Blaster. This is a great tool to have, especially for engine bays, because there's gonna be a lot of standing water in small pockets that you're not gonna be able to get to with a towel, or it's gonna be a lot more difficult. So having this forced air to blow everything out comes very, very handy on engine bay details, wheel cleaning, washing cars, paint correct. It's an overall great tool to have. If you don't want to have an air compressor and all that jazz. And lastly here, I'm wiping the engine bay down, just checking around and seeing what I missed, what I need to wipe down to get a holistic view of my results. And next I'm going to move on to actually dressing the plastic and trim, or just the plastics here, with Meguiar's Hyper Dressing, I believe diluted 4:1. So I sprayed, in that specific situation right here, I sprayed the dressing directly onto the towel. It is water based, so there's no problem if you spray it across the entire engine bay. You just easily wipe it off since it's water based. But here, just to keep the overspray down, I just sprayed it directly to the towel and then worked it around the entire engine bay. And here is the after. Unfortunately, the sun right there was kind of not in the best way to show you the after, but it's definitely a huge difference, especially for selling a vehicle. Now, is this Concours level detail? Did I get every single last dirt or grime or anything out of the engine bay? No, of course not. But overall, I mean, I guess anyone's going to say this is a huge 100 times improvement than what it currently was, especially for photos to make it look more. Make it look better for potential buyers to, you know, be wild and to actually want to go look at the vehicle. I've definitely reached that goal, and the customer was very happy with the end results. And I took photos after this, and once the detail was done, I did send those via a Dropbox link to the customer. And this was the last part of the detail. I took care of the interior, I did the engine cleaning, and now it was just to do a basic wash on the exterior. Now this would have been a much quicker and straightforward detail had the wheels not been so rough. Again, like I said, it's been years, it's a few months since the car's been driven, so it's just been sitting there with the brake dust. I don't know how long he's been having that cover, or you know, if he actually did or did not drive it, but the brake dust was really caked onto there, so it took me a lot more time to knock off the brake dust from the wheel barrels. At this point, I was using a super clean diluted 4-to-1, I believe. I should have maybe gone with a super degreaser had I brought one, or gone straight as far as not diluting the super clean. But even then, I think it would have took a pretty good while because it was so kicked onto the inner wheel barrel, which took the most time. And you'll see what I'm doing there with the water hose. I want to push the brake dust onto the grass so the brake dust just doesn't sit there and stain the concrete. So that's a good little tip if you don't want to, obviously you don't want to stain the concrete with brake dust, so just push it away with the water if possible. Next, again, this is just a super straightforward optimum no rinse rinseless car wash. There's nothing fancy of this. It wasn't in bad condition at all. Again, it's been under the covers. I don't know when's the last time he washed it. Definitely don't know when was the last time he waxed it. It could have definitely used, I mean, you know, with a vehicle like this that hasn't been driven, it's been under a car cover that probably hasn't been, you know, detailed thoroughly in years probably. Of course, it's gonna be able to use clean the paint, at a minimum a wash and wax, and obviously definitely some type of paint correction or at least a polish to remove the light swirls and scratches. But again, since the owner is going to sell the vehicle, he didn't want to spend that much money on it because he just wants to make it look good enough. And yes, the towel fell there and I threw it away and got another one because it fell and touched the ground. But yes, the customer just wanted to get it looking good enough for the pictures to sell it. So he was happy with the results at the end of the detail. Alright, and just to give you a quick overview, wheels and tires were looking great. I'd say about 60, 70, 80% of the brake dust was removed. It was just a quick wash, dressed the tires, lightly touched up the fender wells, so it's looking good. Okay, and that wraps up this video. Now, as I was mentioning throughout the video, I did go visit another prospect after that vehicle was completed. And good thing enough is that the other prospect I visited was literally 5 minutes away from the Camaro customer, because the other prospect wanted me to go test his paint for some paint correction. So I just did a quick 50-50. It took me no more than like 15 minutes when I was there. I did two. Well, it was one main customer, and then I went to go handle the prospect, which was just testing the paint real quick, sending him a quote. It wasn't no serious work, and then I went to the shop, and then I was complete for the day. But yes, that's the end of the video. Leave any comments, questions, concerns that you have down below. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.